The windmill's sails groan on splintered pivots as blood-red sun drains into cracked horizon. Tombstones lean in shallow rows, names eroded by years of silence. A scream rips through the dusk, child's voice, raw with fear, then vanishes as suddenly as it came. Silence swallows the sound, leaving only the wind's whisper over abandoned fields. No rider dares cross Caldwell Ranch after twilight. They say the last Caldwell child, 12 summers old, chased fireflies into the mill's shadow and never returned. Search parties scoured each loft and shaft, finding nothing but footprints circling the door, then trailing outward to nothing. Some swear they still see her figure at the mill's peak, a small silhouette framed against shattered boards, hair blown wild, eyes pleading. Others claim the wind carries her whispers, begging someone, anyone, to follow the path she left behind. At the gate, rusted hinges shudder like a warning. Turn back now, or become the next lost soul in these fields. Do you believe the wind speaks her name? Or is it just the wind? Subscribe if you dare to chase her story beyond the gate. She stands before the Caldwell main house as the sun bleeds out its last light, letters clutched tight in one hand, the other brushing against peeling paint like old scars. Wind sighs through shutterless windows, carrying faint echoes of laughter and work songs that once filled these halls. Neighbors warned her not to dig too deep, but the historian needs the truth. The field beyond yawns wide and empty, its grass brittle as aged parchment. Wildflowers push through cracked soil, their petals grey where colour has long since fled. Footsteps crunch between headstones of forgotten dreams. Rusted fence posts, once guarded livelihoods, now lie twisted as if recoiling from memory. Colonel Caldwell's name still trembles in town gossip, a man who built his empire on sweat and sacrifice, only to see 12 workers vanish without trace on one storm-lashed night. No bodies found, no cries heard, just a sudden hush that swallowed horses, tools, and voices. She follows the edge of the field to the old windmill, its sails frozen in place. Beneath its base, muddy footprints circle a single shattered boot. She kneels, brushing away loam to reveal the first clue. A copper locket half buried, its glass face spider-webbed with cracks. Inside, a child's portrait stares back, eyes wide with a plea that time could not erase. A distant rumble warns of approaching clouds. Lightning cracks the sky, illuminating the boot's twin, lying discarded beyond a rotting fence gate. She gingerly pries it free, finding a worn engraving on the sole. H.J., 1886. Initials that match no worker on Colonel Caldwell's roster. Yet the date aligns with the night the ranch fell silent. Rain begins as she returns to the house, each drop drumming a funeral march. In the foyer, floorboards groan under weight not hers. She lifts a loose plank and uncovers a hidden journal wrapped in oilskin. Pages are waterlogged but legible, entries detailing long nights of whispers, trades made in candlelight, promises sealed in blood. Before she can read more, the house seems to exhale. Doors slam shut, rooms plunge into darkness. A draft whips through corridors, carrying the faint scent of tobacco and fear. Somewhere overhead, the windmill creaks once, slow, deliberate, as if marking her progress. By candlelight, she opens the journal. The final entry ends mid-sentence. They thought the field would hide everything, but the earth remembers. Words trail into damp void, leaving her to fill the rest. Tonight she has uncovered the first grain of truth buried beneath 10 years of rumor, but the field holds deeper horrors, and the ranch's heart still beats beneath hollow earth. What do you believe? The locket and journal reveal about the night the workers vanished. A rancid breeze slips beneath barn doors, lifting dust motes like lost souls. The hoist chain groans overhead, a rusty sigh echoing through empty stalls. In the center, on a splintered workbench, rests an iron-bound ledger waiting for hands to betray it. She lifts the heavy cover, its hinges protesting under decades of silence. Pages lie yellowed, brittle, each one pinned by the weight of names. Farmhands first. John McAllister, crossed out in jagged strokes. Bright-eyed kid from the East Fields, marked July 4, 1865, and vanished. Next page, Maria Henshaw, Caldwell's cousin by blood. Her name trembles on the line, faded ink humming with dread. No cause of death, no grave location, just the slash of doom. Every name bears that stroke, as if fate wielded this quill. She reads on. Samuel Blackwood, tall and silent. Anita Caldwell, youngest daughter of Colonel's brother. Robert Kane, wagon driver, whispered to have nightmares before he died. Names stretch into dozens, each one crossing worlds in a single pen stroke. What hand held this ledger and spelled out doom? Who counted each soul before the ink dried? She traces pencil-light notes in margins. Last seen near windmill. Another. Refused supper, eyes fixed on moon. A chill crawls up her spine. Barn rafters creak under some unseen weight. She closes her eyes and feels cold breath on her neck. Ledger snaps shut at her touch, metal clasps biting into wood. She opens to July 4th, 1865. Only names, then blank pages. Empty lines waiting for more lost souls. She flips back to the first entry, John McAllister's name. She sees a date scribbled faintly beneath the crossing, July 3rd, 1865. He disappeared at dusk, returning to Caldwell Ranch for pay. Town records mention only his last mule tied by the creek. His saddle lay empty at dawn. No body, no blood, no echo of his footsteps. She pauses on Anita's entry. Found wanderings. G. Fields at midnight. She said she chased fireflies. Neighbors recalled her laughter stopping at barn door. Then silence claimed her voice forever. She closes her fist around the ledger, iron edges biting skin. Each scratch in the binding tells of someone's final tremor. She pictures the hand that crossed each name, steady, remorseless, grim. A hand that served justice, or something far darker. Lightning flashes through cracked barn windows. Shadows leap across hay bales like specters dancing. She shivers, remembering warnings never learned in school. Don't dig too deep, or you'll find more than bones. But truth demands sacrifice. She lights a lantern, its flicker painting ledger lines in firelight. Each name erupts in her vision, lived, worked, vanished. Every crossing screams for a reckoning. Tonight, she will trace each name to its last known moment. One by one, she'll walk the fields at dawn's first light. She'll search windmill shafts, creek beds, and cellar floors. She'll press her ear to coffin doors hidden beneath floorboards. With every step, the ledger's power grows heavier. She feels eyes upon her, though no living soul remains. Farmhands, cousins, drivers, they watch from beyond ink stains. They wait for her to break the pattern or to join the list. She tucks the ledger beneath her arm, resolute. Outside, rain begins to fall in mournful drips. Barn doors sway in rhythm with distant thunder. She steps into the night, bound by the names she bears. The ledger's lid snaps shut behind her, echoing like a judge's gavel. Her lantern's glow fades into the field's sea of shadows. 78 names, 78 destinies, one unbroken curse. She breathes, poised on the edge of revelation and ruin. Which name will you trace first when you face that ledger? The crops once rippled gold under summer sun. Now those same stalks rot in twisted hush, whispering of a terror too vile for daylight. Locals speak in hushed tones of the night harvest that turned to nightmare. Torches bobbed along the fence line, flames sputtering in wind that carried distant shouts and one rider's scream. A sound cut loose from flesh, echoing through the wheat like a blade through silk. They found the torches abandoned, half buried in mud. The sickly glimmer of torchlight faded where shadows darted between stalks, shapes impossible for human bones. Survivors swore the wheat bent against the breeze, recoiling as though stalks had spines. They ran then, boots sloshing furrows, hearts pounding in time with wood knives thudding against fence posts. One man, lean and wild-eyed, claimed he saw a figure glide beside his horse. It wore a coat made of mist and blood, face obscured by a hood dripping wheat chaff. Its fingers brushed the horse's flank, cold as grave dust. The horse bolted, dragging saddle and rider through broken stalks until both vanished into a low thrum of darkness. No body, no hoofprints, just the smell of wet straw and something older than fear. After that night, the fields lay fallow. No one dared reap the stalks that thrived with rot. Old Caldwell placed a warning sign at the gate, simple planks bleeding the word away, but even that rotted through. Search parties combed rows by dawn's pale light. They found footprints leading into the field, then nothing. The wheat closed over each track as if the soil itself had swallowed them whole. Years passed, and tongues learned silence. The ranch fell quiet. Evening breezes still carried a faint echo of the rider's scream, but few stayed to listen. Children dared each other to step among the stalks at dusk, only to flee when the wheat shivered at their passing. No wind recorded, no wings heard, yet the rustlings swelled in accusation. One autumn, a visiting historian uncovered letters detailing a massacre a century before. Coal downs. Well, hands had forced laborers into the fields under moonlight, harvesting grain for power, not bread. When workers tried to flee, overseers slaughtered them in secret furrows. Names were struck from payroll, bodies left as mulch. In trembling ink, a hand had vowed the land would remember. Tonight, historians and ghost hunters follow those faded footprints. Lanterns cast elongated shadows over hollow furrows. Every step stirs rotting wheat that leans closer, hungrily. Something stalks behind them, patient, hungry for confession. They hear whispers in the hush. Remember us. Reap justice. As they near the heart of the field, a low moan rises, rising into the scream that still cannot die. Wheat stalks clatter like bones rattling chains. Lanterns swing madly, breath slows, blood chills, and the dark shapes slip closer, cutting off the path back to safety. You can feel that same panic knot your chest. You can taste the rot on your tongue. The harvest calls your name. Will you answer? What terror would you face in those haunted fields? Twilight settled across Caldwell Ranch beneath two pale moons. The first hung low on the horizon like an omen. The second shone high overhead, cold and distant. The sky bled red at the edges. A lone witness spoke on trembling lips. He saw a figure emerge from the wheat, a rider without flesh or warmth. He wore a coat ragged as grave linen. In his hand he clutched a rifle, the barrel dragged against dry earth with every stride. Each scrape sang like a funeral dirge. The wind carried his hollow laughter through the rows. Torches bobbed along the fence line, flames sputtering against the night. Farmers swore their light would flicker out near that shape. Horse hooves thundered in tandem with heartbeats. A scream cut loose, torn and ragged. Then the world fell silent, silence deeper than midnight. No rustle in the stalks, no cry of animals, only the rider gliding on. By dawn, all that remained was an empty plain. Torches lay cold where they fell. Fence posts bore deep gouges from frantic grips. The rider was gone. In his stead, a single lantern stood upright, smouldering ash in the morning chill. Old Caldwell found his horse nearby, muzzle buried in soft dust, eyes wide with fear. No rider sat astride the saddle. No rifle or cloak remained in sight. The ranch froze at that moment. The beginning of the end had arrived. Locals spun tales by lantern light. They whispered of a ghost from Civil War graves. Some named him Blackwood. He returned for vengeance on betrayals long buried. His body was never recovered. His curse soaked the soil. 3 sightings followed that night. 3 more vanishings into smoke and moonlight. A dairymaid glimpsed rifle smoke through broken barn windows. A trapper felt cold steel at his back. A child playing near the windmill froze at hollow eyes watching her. Each ended the same way. A rush of wind, a breath drawn, then nothing. Witness statements filled dusty ledgers in county archives. They describe his silhouette under 2 full moons. A rider cursed to roam fields of betrayal. A rifle that demands blood for every echoing shot. Flashbacks reveal Colonel Caldwell's last harvest. His workers vanished at moonrise. Tools dropped in half-reaped rows. Shouts silenced by a single gunshot. Caldwell swore retribution. He bound his losses in secret ledgers and sealed fields with curses. Tonight we unearth the past. We walk the same furrows they fled. We light our torches where they fell. We raise our rifles to confront the phantom. The 2 moons glare at us as we step into the plain. Each stalk quivers with memory. The windmill groans its last confession. The earth beneath our boots feels alive. It remembers, it watches, it waits for the rider's return. We load our rifles and steady our breath. We answer the cowboy's whispered fears. We stand ready to face the gunslinger's final charge. Which clue will you follow first when legend meets moonlight? Dust drifts through, or the old nursery like ash settling after a fire. The wallpaper peels in long, mournful strips, revealing handprints too small to belong to any living child. No footprints lead away from this room's splintered door. Only smeared dust tracks map a silent path across cracked floorboards. Caldwell's own children vanished first. 12 little ones whose laughter once echoed from these walls. Mothers and fathers searched fields and barns. They scoured riverbanks under moonlight. But all they found were tiny palm prints, etched in dust, leading to nowhere. Villagers whispered of a friend made of dust, a companion who lived beneath the nursery floor. They claimed the children spoke to it in voices thin as wind through dead wheat. They begged their parents not to lift the boards, warning that the friend would hide their voices forever. Year 1. Lullabies fell silent. Year 2. The ranch itself grew restless. Horses shied at empty cradles. Cattle balked at nursery windows. A single cradle swing swayed on its own, creaking a lullaby for ghosts. Decades later, an old midwife, gnarled as the cedar trees outside, confessed in a fevered whisper. She admitted she buried her own daughter beneath these floorboards. The girl had been stillborn. Too ashamed, The midwife hid the body here, hoping the child's spirit would remain safe among friends. 1. The midwife's journal tells of midnight prayers. She dug a shallow grave in the nursery before dawn. She wrapped her daughter in linen, laid her to rest beneath the loving gaze of Caldwell's children. Then she sealed the boards. 2. Soon after, Caldwell's first child vanished. No footprints, no screams, only handprints on walls where she once finger-painted flowers. The midwife blamed the dust child, the villagers blamed the ranch's curse. 3. Every child born to the Caldwell line disappeared in turn. Each left a dust handprint, armed at the edge of the nursery. Each voice drifted down into the darkness beneath. Decades passed, the nursery fell to ruin, Caldwell's walls reddened with wind-blown earth. The windmill stopped turning, the barn gates swung open to emptiness. Now nights draw in early. The moon casts a pale hunger through broken panes. A historian stands with lantern raised, ready to peel back decades of silence. One layer, the brass nail heads, dulled by rust. She unscrews them with tender fingers. A whisper scrapes her ear. Don't wake her. 2 layers, the cedar floorboards, warped by sweat and sorrow. She pries a board free. Dust pours out, spilling secrets in brown clouds. 3 layers, a hollow cavern beneath. The lantern light falls on small shapes lined like coffins. Tin toys rest on each plank, painted horses with chipped blue manes. A single name etched on each lid. Emma Caldwell, Samuel Caldwell, Lucy Caldwell. She lifts a lid. Straw nestles inside, disturbed but dry. Nobody sleeps here, only the echo of small limbs curled beneath. A single hair ribbon lies coiled like a snake among the strands. A hush deepens. The air tastes of old tears and tilled soil. She hears giggles from overhead, faint and wistful, footsteps against the nursery floorboards. No child is there. One voice. Friend? A drift of dust gathers at the lantern's edge, spiraling upward. It shapes into a small figure, arms open in invitation. Its face is empty, a mask of whisper and longing. She backs away, lantern swinging, casting the figure's shadow across beams and rusted nails. The dust child reaches out, fingertips dissolving before they touch. The historian steels herself. She kneels at the hatch and calls each missing child's name, one by one. Emma, Samuel, Lucy, Clara, Joseph, all those stolen by the earth's slow hunger. With each name the dust stirs, swirling into a column of broken lullabies. The figure grows brighter, edges tinged with silver light. The giggles sharpen into cries, pleas for remembrance. She hears the midwife's confession. I bound her spirit here. I thought the children would keep her company. Instead, she claimed them. A single tear falls onto the wood, hissing as it hits dry dust. The boards glow around it, revealing an inscription carved in fading script. Once dust, we rise. Once named, we return. The dust child's mouth opens in mute song. A chorus of tiny hands beat against the hatch's underframe, rattling chains that could not hold them. She lifts the lid fully. The children do not climb out. Instead, the hatch swallows the lantern's glow. The dust spirals upward in one great exhale, and every handprint on those decaying walls vanishes in a breath. The nursery lies empty once more. Only new dust settles on lantern glass, dulling its flame. Outside, the historian steps back as the hatch closes itself. She hears a distant voice, older than wind, whispering, "Remember us." The midwife's secret has been unearthed. Caldwell's deeper rot has been exposed. The dust children wait now in memory, no longer bound beneath boards. Will you speak their names to set them free, or leave them trapped in silence once more? The painted panel hangs silent in the great hall, untouched by dust or decay. By day, it looks innocent, a family laughing under a bright sky, children chasing sunlight through fields of red poppies. But when darkness falls, the paint begins to weep. Flowers darken like fresh wounds. Petals once open now curl inward, dripping color that pools on the wooden floor. Faces in the painting shift. Happy smiles twist into grimaces of fear. Eyes widen as if staring at something only they can see. Oil that should have dried for decades remains slick and pliant. Brushstrokes shimmer in torchlight, alive with hidden motion. Paranormal investigators set cameras here, hoping to catch a trick of light or a prey. Ink of the mind. All their footage shows the panel warping. Laughter melts into whispered sobs. Children's shadows flicker off the canvas, moving against the grain. No mortal hand touches the paint, yet it moves. 3 investigators recorded their own terror at midnight. One heard a child's cry behind her back. Another saw red bloom like blood across the father's coat. The third caught his own face reflected in the varnish, twisted in horror. He screamed. Oil never dries. It holds every secret festering beneath Caldwell's history. The ranch's past seeps through layers of pigment. Each brushstroke may conceal atrocity, each color may mask grief. We stand before the panel, lanterns raised like confessions. The wood walls breathe around us, timbers swollen with damp and dread. Steps echo down empty corridors as we circle the painting's frame. Our breath clouds in the chill. No drafts stir the heatless air. Stillness presses like a hand over the mouth of the hall. We lean closer. We see a figure in the background, gloved hand resting on a shoulder. At first glance, a father steadying his son. At next glance, the father's arm drips poppy red, a skinless wrist. A second glance, the child's face is blank, eyes peeled away like petals. We lean even closer. Paint peels in slow ribbons, revealing raw wood beneath. Underneath, charcoal sketches trace the true outlines of sorrow. Sketches of a mother weeping over an unmarked grave. A sister clutching a torn dress, her mouth open in silence. An orphaned boy clutching nothing but dust. The family picnic was no celebration. It was the last moment of peace before the rot set in. Caldwell's wife died here, poisoned by rum in a wine cup transplanted from the south. His eldest son disappeared next, stepping into the fields to bury a secret. His daughters vanished too, drawn by whispers beneath floorboards. Each death carved deeper tragedy into the ranch's ledger. The painter, talent recruited from a city gallery, was paid in gold. He worked by candlelight, blending color to hide the ranch's stain. His brush carried secrets in each pigment. He left town before the first child was laid to rest. No records of his departure remain. They say he fled after glimpsing something in the canvas, something that moved and breathed without blood. At dawn, his easel stood empty. The painting remained. Night after night it wept. We count the brushstrokes in 3 sections: sky, family, poppies. 1. Sky turns ashen, storm clouds swirling deep above painted hills. 2. Figures in mid-laughter freeze in half gestures, fingers forever reaching. 3. Poppy petals drip, each drop a bead of memory stolen. We count them in silence. They fall into pools on the floor. Those pools reflect our own faces, drawn tight with fear. Somewhere a distant clock chimes midnight. We do not flinch. We have come too far. We lift lanterns to the panel's center. A voice drifts through the hall, not our own. Remember us? The poppies tremble. Faces twitch. A small child steps from the painted crowd, one foot landing on canvas, one foot resting on the frame. Her laughter echoes through the hall, sharp, ringing, unnatural. We step back, lanterns swinging. She extends a hand, fingers coated in dripping red. We do not take it. Instead, we raise our cameras once more. We capture the moment paint and flesh align. Her eyes meet ours. Her smile stretches too wide. Then she vanishes. In a flare of light, a snap of color. The panel shudders, exhaling a breath of cold. Silence engulfs us again. We record every detail for the record, warped lines, bleeding petals, contorted faces. We swear on every frame we will not look away. We will trace the cursed artistry to its source. We will examine every brushstroke for the moment the paint began to weep. The ranch's past will no longer hide behind oil and canvas. Its horror will stand exposed in full daily. So, will you follow us into the frame to uncover Caldwell's darkest secret? A cold wind stirs at the old oak where Mary Caldwell knelt in midnight's hush. We must read each line she wrote while standing on the edge of loss. The journal's last page turns itself, flipping to dust. A single sentence remains. Life is the cruelest debt. Behind us, the oak creaks, branches curling toward moonlight. Beneath our feet, soil stirs as if eager to exchange new names. Mary Caldwell's final hours echo in the wind. Tonight we carry her promise into shadows she once fled. Will you bear witness to her bargain, or leave the price unspoken? The slave quarters still stand, their timbers scarred by flame and whispered horrors. Ash coats every beam. Smoke has long vanished, but its stain remains, black as a grief that never fades. No bird sings here. No breeze stirs the broken shutters, only the hush of weighty air, heavy with untold suffering. They called him Crow, a driver whose whip split the night like thunder. His laughter followed each crack, mocking defiance, tearing hope. Crow ruled these cabins by lash and fear. Decades after his death, ranch hands swear they hear leather snapping in the wind. Not the creaking of boards, but the echo of a whip, far off yet sharp enough to flinch the soul. One night, they found the barn doors carved with fresh scorch marks, deep grooves in the wood, shaped like a lash's strike. No hand guides them, no tool left behind, only the old terror revisited at moonrise. We peer into post-Civil War accounts, tracing survivors' voices through yellowed letters and trembling testimonies. Former slaves spoke of Crow's shadow drifting through their dreams. They spoke of midnight marches, where his wrist dropped the lash again and again. One woman, scarred by memory, recalled his coat whipping like dark wings. She felt its chill against her cheek, though no living soul stood near. She fled to the quarter's edge, whispering her child's name until dawn stilled her tongue. Another testified under oath. He followed a crack through sleeping fields, lantern high. He saw shapes flicker in rows of cabins, dust-choked shadows, children cowering against walls. Then he heard it. Snap, snap, snap. One rhythm, endless, tearing night apart. Records show a church meeting in '67 where witnesses swore on the Bible they felt the lash across their backs. They left the meeting house clutching hymnals like shields. No one sang that night. The preacher's voice cracked like a whip itself. By 1902, local newspapers carried brief reports of elderly ranch hands who chased the sound to empty stalls. They kicked through stalls, looking for deliverance. They found only that scorched wood and the echo of absence. Modern ranch hands swear they still feel it, a hot breath along the spine. A sudden wind through boarded windows. Faint marks appear overnight, long reddened gashes on corrals and gates. They paint over them at dawn, but they return by dusk. Paranormal teams installed cameras in the quarters. They caught orbs drifting near charred walls. They recorded low-frequency rumbles, heartbeat echoes beneath whip cracks. One investigator pressed his ear to the barn door and heard voices chanting an old slave hymn, then a snap that cut him off. We walk these grounds with lanterns and open minds. Each step stirs old dust and newer dread. The cabins lean inward as if listening. Doors that once held back terror now swing open on their own. Floorboards sigh with remembered weight. In the heart of the quarter, we find a faded photograph nailed to a post. Crow's whip tangled in gnarled roots, hanging above a narrow path. Beneath it, someone etched a single word: remember. We follow that path to a weathered stump, where Crow once met overseers to carve orders into bark. Here, the earth is soft as fresh graves. We dig with trembling hands, unearthing fragments of bone entwined in leather thong. A singles. The iron buckle glints beneath the soil. They buried Crow's body in an unmarked grave. They thought death would end the lash, but the curse bound him to the land. His whip thrums beneath our boots, ready to strike again. We carry our findings to the corral gate, where ranch hands reported the fiercest sounds, leather slashing at empty air. We nail a crossbeam across the gate and hang the whistle Crow used to call riders. We blow it into the wind. Silence. Then, behind us, a crack like thunder. We turn to see the wind lift the lash from the corral floor. It snaps once, twice, leaving a line of scorched earth. Then it drifts away, swirling into darkness. We stand in the echo, hearts pounding. The curse remains alive, fueled by violence long endured. Each crack of the whip is a reminder that some horrors never die. They only sharpen with time. What do you hear when the lash cracks in the wind? If you're brave, subscribe and share with a friend. July 1865 dawned hot and heavy over Caldwell Ranch. No one suspected what horror awaited beyond the ridge. Shortly after sunrise, the ground trembled. A herd of cattle thundered out of the trees. They poured over fences in a rolling wall of muscle and dust. Ranch hands scrambled for safety. Their shouts vanished beneath a roar of hooves. Fences splintered like matchsticks. Barn walls buckled and fell. Posts snapped in half, metal hinges twisted like wire. The herd surged through corrals once meant to hold life. They stampeded without driver or command. No rider guided them. No trumpet sounded their charge. Only raw, furious momentum. When the dust finally settled, silence swallowed the valley. Every beast lay motionless in broken lines. Their eyes stared into nothing, wide, glassy, frozen in terror. No sign of struggle or wound, no rebel bawl or coyote bite. Just the still bodies of 70 cattle. Ranch hands crept among them. Their boots sank it into soft soil slick with mud. They knelt beside each giant rib cage. They tested for breath. None answered. A low moan rose from the breeze. It carried a memory of distant cries. They found twisted iron tracks cutting through the earth. Heavy wagon wheels gouged deep ruts. But no wagon stood nearby, no trace of wood or nail, only dark soil pressed into metal grooves. They followed the tracks to a shattered corral gate. The gate sank into muddy ground like a broken tooth. Stampede tracks fanned outward across barren fields, then faded into empty grass. Locals whispered that cattle never run free like that. They said the beasts were possessed. Vengeful spirits drove them mad. They remembered crows' lash cracking in the night. They remembered children's wails behind boarded windows. They remembered blood soaked into the ground. Now, nature itself seemed to seek revenge. An old rancher pointed to hoofprints leading into the creek. Water pooled in each hoof's imprint. It gleamed black like spilled oil. He tasted the water. It was bitter as regret. He spat it into the grass. No fish swam there anymore. He turned away, tears in his eyes. A photograph taken at dusk showed cattle heads tilted in sorrow. Their ears drooped. Their tails lay limp. No sign of disease or poison. Only their wide, silent gaze. Paranormal teams arrived weeks later. They set cameras at the gate and along iron tracks. They recorded low hums under whip cracks. They felt a pulse in the earth. One investigator swore he heard the echo of children's footsteps. Another caught a distant scream tangled in cattle calls. Someone found an old diary hidden beneath the porch floorboards. Pages numbered July 8, 1865, the day before the stampede. It belonged to Caldwell's foreman. He wrote of nightmares filled with snapping leather and flickering torches. He wrote of cattle, eyes glowing red in moonlight. He begged for morning to come. Then the final entry. They come for us all. We stand now at the edge of those same iron tracks. Our lanterns cast long shadows across cracked earth. Each hoof-shaped hollow waits for midnight. We trace the tracks back toward the tree line. Branches creak overhead, alive with unseen movement. Our breath plumes in the chill dusk air. We measure the grooves in soil. We photograph the twisted metal stain. We whisper the foreman's final words. They come for us all. The wind stirs dust between our feet. It carries the scent of scorched wood and old tears. Nature once held promise here. Now it holds only dread. We follow hoofprints into darkness. We seek the moment when life bowed to death. We chase the echo of hoofbeats across cursed ground. Will you walk the tracks with us to find what answers lie beneath? A century of silence presses against Caldwell's dust-choked gate. Shadows gather like restless crowds. Dowsers kneel in cracked stone, their rods twitching over the earth's scars. Clairvoyants stand in hushed circles, eyes closed, faces pale with what they sense beneath. Anger, grief, betrayal, layer upon layer, buried in those bones. Each whisper of wind carries a memory. Every grain of dust trembles with unspoken names. They speak of a final echo, a voice that drifts through empty halls and broken windows. It calls the living by name. Promises release from the burden of wind and stone. Promises release from dust. Promises. What exactly? No one knows. Each medium steps forward to claim the truth, but trembles at what they find. We arrive under moonlight with our own team, scientists with sensors, technicians with cameras, skeptical faces turned by flickering lanterns. The broken gate groans as we push through. A single chime of metal against rust echoes in the night. The air smells of cold earth and old sorrow. We place microphones at the threshold and geophones along the flagstones. We mark dust patterns and measure vibration. We ask each other to breathe slowly. The medium whispers prayers into the gloom. Her voice drips through corridors stained by time. Dust drifts down like ashes from a funeral pyre. At her feet the floor pulses softly. She halts. She shudders. She utters a name carried only in her mind until now. We freeze. The sensors tick. The machines hum. In the hush, we strain to hear beyond the static. Suddenly, a rasp, soft at first, like wind through broken boards, then clearer, a sigh of voice in the dark, a child's voice, or a woman's thin wail. It lingers in corners, beckons from cellars. We follow it into chambers where no light reaches. Our lanterns reveal walls scraped raw by grief, a single footprint in dust, no direction, only the promise of movement. We descend to the basement beneath the parlor. Stone steps crumble underfoot. The geophones thrum as we move deeper. The medium stops at a sealed doorway. She presses her hand to the surface of cold wood. The boards shudder. Dust flurries like ghosts escaping their tomb. A breath escapes her lips. They wait. Behind the door lies a single chamber, empty except for scattered papers and broken toys. Dust swirls in lamplight, forming shapes before our eyes. We set up cameras at each corner. We play back the audio. Beneath hum and hiss, the faint murmur persists. A child chanting numbers, 1, 2, 3, counting souls trapped in dust. A hidden latch gives under her fingers. The door swings inward with a groan. We step into a room carved by sorrow. Walls bear names, scratched in trembling script. Names of 16 children, not the 78. Tears stain each carving. We place our microphones at ear height. We ask the question aloud. Who are you? Silence. The geophones flatline. Then a single whisper floods the mics. All of us. A cold rush sweeps the chamber. Our breath plumes in the air. Dust spirals like a storm. We feel presence, many presences. They swirl around us, pressing like invisible hands. The medium collapses forward. A final whisper rides the gale. Set us free. Behind us, the machines record a spike of energy, a final word, half remembered, half lost. Remember. We lock the door and climb back into moonlight. Our hearts pound with what we have captured, scientific proof and spiritual trauma fused in a single moment. The wind carries that final echo down the hillside, an unending call to memory. The dust still clings to Caldwell's bones, but our recordings give it voice. We hold that legacy in trembling hands. Do we speak their names to free them, or leave them in dust's embrace? Will you say their names aloud and break the silence? As the wind moans through empty corridors, Caldwell Ranch exhales decades of unanswered questions. Each gust rattles broken shutters like bones clattering in the black. We tally the debts of blood and betrayal. Who whispered the widow's bargain beneath that ancient oak? What screams lie buried beneath the scorched fields? Shadows swirl across the homestead's skeletal remains, sliding over splintered porch planks and shattered windows, as if eager to conceal secrets we were never meant to unearth. The camera drifts through deserted rooms where orphaned dreams once took root. Dust limbs every mantel and floorboard, faded footprints ghost toward doorways that no longer open. In the dim glow of a dying lantern, walls bear the faint impressions of tiny hands, etched in powdery ash as though children pressed theirs in fear and hope both. The wind picks up, carrying a hollow echo, the distant crack of a whip, a child's distant sob, the clink of iron shackles long since rusted away. Each sound loops in our ears, a question without answer. We step into the parlor where Mary Caldwell's portrait hangs crooked, her eyes following us with a plea. Beneath her, an empty cradle sways on its own. We feel a pulse in the floorboards, an old promise forged in desperation. Outside, the fields lie fallow, blood red, poppies stubbornly thriving where once wheat swayed in golden waves. Their petals drip like fresh wounds. The earth itself seems to weep. This place still waits on the horizon. Its legacy of dust and despair endures. If you dare to name its sins, you might become its next secret. Will you speak its name, or leave its ghosts to wander alone?